One view reporting was introduced by JDEtips EnterpriseOne 9.1. It provides an intuitive, easy-to-use method to access and produce reports using Oracle BI Publisher. And some good news happened for those of you that have 9.0 or customers that have 9.0. OneView was extended based on a press memo by Oracle on January 29th to 9.0. So that makes a whole lot of new customers able to use OneView. It's a reporting tool that allows end users to personalize transaction data for any JDE module into lists, graphs, charts, and tables, as you will see soon. And the good news is there's several predefined reports that come with OneView when you purchase OneView for a module like sales order entry that are special in the case that they have fields and from various files that allow some tremendous types of reporting, as you will see in the upcoming presentation. Next slide, please. Next slide. So we're going to start by creating a new OneView report. Above is the normal customer service inquiry screen. We first populate the grid before proceeding by using the query by example bar, or we can run an existing query as we did above. So you can see the grid is populated, and you'll notice I've circled at the top of the screen the OneView icon. Next screen, please. When I click the OneView icon, a small window opens just below the icon showing existing OneView reports and my options to either add or manage existing reports. I'm going to click Add Reports. Next slide, please. When I click Add Reports, you'll notice two things. In the grid for the fields, plus signs appear, and a report definition box opens on the right side. Next slide, please. Now let's look more closely at the report definition box. You'll see I've circled at the top 4 icons. Left to right, they are. The first icon will save my report. The second icon will save as to create a version of the report, a copy. The third icon would bring in all columns that are marked with a plus, which is not recommended because it slows performance. And the fourth icon would be to erase all icons, erase all columns. Next slide, please. Continuing with this report definition window, you will notice I have column titles selected. I will use this because I could also use data dictionary items, but by default, the report will retrieve 500 records, but there are options to use the current data in the grid as well, you'll notice just below, or retrieve all records. And at the bottom, you'll see a reminder to click on the plus signs to add the grid columns I desire. Next slide, please. So I've made a few changes now to the same window. I've changed the record count, which defaults to 500 in my setup, to 100. I've clicked several fields that have the green plus sign. I selected them by clicking the plus sign, and it put these 6 fields into selected columns. And I will now click the first icon to save what I've done at the top left of the screen, to save our new report selection. I'm then prompted to enter a report name and click OK to save the new report. Then I get this window that says create a new OneView report layout, and you'll notice I've circled in the right-hand side, add new layout. The layout I'm going to choose for this particular topic is the table layout. I just click on it. And you'll see my BI Publisher sort of worksheet. And you'll see that I can change the report title. I actually called it report title. And I can change or delete table title in the same way, just by straight formatting as I would in Word. And now I proceed to fill the bottom, the section below the table title with the values circled in blue on the left-hand side. These are the 6 columns I've selected, by dragging them one by one, the first one into the box that says drop a data item here, which is the red arrow, and the next ones one by one into that same section. I just do a mouse click and drag. Then I get this screen, which once they've been dragged, and I see the bottom now looks like a bit of a matrix itself with cells of data, I use the font tools that are circled in the rectangle to format the report title. I've called it Customer Service Inquiry and Sales Order Detail Inquiry. So those font tools are very similar in the rectangle to what you see in Microsoft Word. Then you'll see I have the grid populated, and this is just the sample layout of what I'm preparing. And you'll see I have totals. It automatically happens for numeric fields, but I can remove those totals under order number and sold to, and I also want to format the data in the extended amount column. So I click inside the order number total box where you see the red rectangle, and to highlight it, I get an orange border. And then I click on the summation, which is the rectangle up top, circled in red, and I click blank text. And I do the same thing for sold to. Then I click inside the extended amount section, which puts an orange border, which you see is inside the red square. I click at the top the data formatting button, circled in red. I click currency. And I then click extended amount total cell to highlight its border in orange and repeat the data formatting the same way that I picked the currency, giving me the same format that I want for dollars and commas and cents and so on. Last step before I forget, with all this work we've done just now, is top right-hand corner, I click the save icon. I'm prompted to give this layout a name. I do, and I click Save. And I'll click X in the top right to close. This time, when I go back to the OneView icon on my customer service screen, I have, you'll see in blue, New Sample OneView Report. If I click on this, this runs the report. And here's the result of my very quick and easy setup. Here's the report. You'll see there's a scroll bar at the extreme right because I'll have 100 records in my report. The 100 I selected as the cutoff. That's how easy that was. So the next topic that makes sense to show you now that I created one is how do I add a new layout to an existing report? So I click on our now familiar OneView icon. I click on Manage Reports, and I click on the report I just created, New Sample OneView Report. I'm going to now add a chart and a table, not just a table. And it's interesting to note, it's obvious that while I'm doing this, that a OneView report may have multiple layouts with the same columns selected. Next slide, please. So now I'm adding a new layout. How do I do it? To edit the existing layout or add a new layout, I will click on Edit Layout, circled in red at the top. Clicking on a drop-down in the portion surrounded by the red rectangle in the middle of the screen allows me to see all available layouts. In my case, I only have one. Click on one of the icons in the portion surrounded by the red rectangle at the bottom allows me to choose another format for my report. So you can see I can have Word, PDF is the first one, then Word, then PowerPoint, and so on. The third one is the interactive viewer we saw a few minutes ago. So the message here is that I have multiple layouts that the report can generate. Next slide, please. So I get this screen next because I clicked Edit Layout, and I can either add new layout, or in our case, we're going to edit the existing layout by clicking the word Edit. Sorry, we're going to add another layout, not edit the existing layout. Sorry. So you're now again presented with all the various layouts that exist. And this time, I'm adding a new layout, not editing. I'm selecting Chart and Table by clicking on its icon, the one circled in red. So my layout screen, the blank screen, appears, similar to the one we saw earlier. But this time, above the table section to populated tables below, is an area to create a new chart, because I picked Chart and Table. Next slide, please. I will now populate the chart area by dragging Sol2 name to the right and drop series, and extended amount into drop value here. Clicking inside the empty box displays the screen above, and I can personalize report title and chart title as I did before. Next slide, please. A preview is shown on this screen. I'll click the Save icon in red at the top right, and I'll then be prompted to enter a new layout name and click OK to save it. And then I'll click X to close it in the same way. So I click on the OneView icon, I click on Manage Reports, and I'm back to this screen where it has multiple layouts. I click on the drop-down, circled in red, and I'll select this time the new layout, which is called Another Layout. And then click on the icon for Interactive Viewer on the bottom, circled in red, and let's see what happens. Voila. Here's my chart portion of my new report. The table will be underneath, as it was before, but I now have a chart with the legend on the right-hand side of the chart. How do I modify an existing report? First, I select the report, as I've shown in Manage Reports. And by clicking that, I get the report, I get the screen above. Note the columns that I've selected are already checked. I can't reselect them, but I can unselect them if I wish. Click on the Report Definition tab at the top right-hand side of the screen. Next slide, please. And you'll notice that I have plus signs beside the column names in the screen above that correspond to what I've already selected. But this time I have plus signs for the ones I haven't selected, check marks for the ones I have. So this time I'm going to add the second item number, which I've never selected, by clicking its plus sign. The columns already selected, as you can see on the right in the rectangle, are already there, the 6 fields, the 6 columns. So by clicking the plus sign beside second item number, I'm adding that to my selected columns. If I happen to click an X beside any of the selected columns, it removes it from the selection. Next slide, please. The new column now appears at the bottom as the 7th column. I click Save, top left, to save my changes. And the system is smart, the OneView system. It knows I've made a change. You want to keep your report and layouts while replacing the data model. I click OK. And then it says layouts may need to be adjusted. I click OK to acknowledge that. I then edit my layout, the first one I created, which is just the table. And I now can drag second item number to the far right, as shown in the arrow. I click the Save icon, circled in red, and I click the X on the next screen to close it, as we've done, and return to the customer service inquiry screen. The next time you see I run this report, you'll see I have a new column. Let's proceed to the next slide, please. And there it is. So now the second item number is appearing in my report. So that's how easy it is to modify. Next topic is I want to show you how to format multiple table columns at the same time, which is a very time-saving exercise. What I do is by holding the control key down and clicking inside several columns, you'll see I simultaneously have 4 columns surrounded in orange. I can now format all 4 simultaneously. And what I plan to do is center the column data for all 4 columns by clicking on the center icon, which is circled in red at the top of the screen, that little small rectangle. And voila, here we go. All 4 columns in one shot, instead of doing one at a time, have been centered. So I can save this and close it in the same way. Now, there's other formatting. We're going to format a table's appearance now. So I click below the table title. So I get an orange border around the whole table. And I click on Properties, which is at the bottom of the left corner of the screen. And what I see that opens is a bunch of choices, of which one of them is alternate row color. My current row color is white, so obviously alternate row color now is white. I'm going to change it to gray instead to make the table easier to read. So I click on the box beside the words alternate row color. Next slide, please. Up pops a color chart. I pick gray. I pick custom color, gray, click OK. And there I go. So I now make my chart easier to read, and every second row is now gray. Using the control key and the mouse click technique that I showed you just a few minutes ago, I can take multiple column headings, which are now all highlighted in orange. Again, I click Properties. And note I have, under the category of appearance, background color, as it affects now the headings. So I click on the little box, up pops a chart, and I'm going to pick, as you see, right in the middle is a yellow, and click OK. And now the heading column is a yellow bar. And I click Save, as usual, to save the modified layout. Now I'll show you how to highlight cell entries in a column conditionally based on their value, which is a very great technique to highlight certain data results. So in the extended cost column, I click inside to get the orange bar around the entire column. I click Highlight just above it. And now I have to populate my criteria. I enter the desired data. In the example above, we will highlight values greater than 20,000 in green bold. Click OK to save. And presto, if I'm looking at my table, the green 22,000 appears because it's greater than 20,000. And of course, I would click Save to save my layout. Inserting a formula in a table. One view allows me to do things like find the difference between 2 columns. But before I do that, I need, if you like, the work column for the result. So I will take one of the columns I already have and pull it again to the right, drag it over to put it beside extended cost. It's going to initially say extended cost, but I'm going to change its name to extended profit. Okay, and format it and so on. Now, click the Define Custom Formula icon, which is in the Formula section with a small rectangle at the top of the screen. Next slide, please. And I'm going to take the function subtraction. So I click on it, and up pops the various functionality to allow me to select my minuend, which is extended price, and then I will pick the subtrahend to be my extended cost by using the field box inside the parameter section. And click OK. So I've now defined my difference formula, and I save it. So now I have an extended profit column, and the rows are actually the difference, row by row, of the values in extended price and the values of extended cost. And you can see in some cases, in most cases, I made a profit. In a few cases, I had a loss. And I actually have the total extended profit calculated for me on the bottom of that column extended profit, circled in the smallest red rectangle. Automatically updated for me. Next topic, inserting a subtotal into a table. I click on my first box, the first column, that's the branch plant. And then I click on grouping drop-down, group left. That's the one of the three options I'm going to use right now. And you see how it changes the table. I now click subtotals. And presto, I have subtotals now by branch plant. That's how easy it is. Let's run this report and see what happens. You can see I have subtotals for branch 30. Next slide, please. Subtotals for branch 40. 40 is just above, so you can't see it. And subtotals for branch 20 and a grand total. Now we want to access and run a provided OneView report. Provided means comes with OneView when you purchase it for a module. And this is what JDEtps EnterpriseOne will look like when you buy OneView for sales order process or the sales order module. You'll notice in the right bottom, I've circled with the rectangle, OneView open sales inquiry, OneView historical sales inquiry, etc., and OneView sales to date inquiry. So we pick this one, and we have to populate the grid. I'm going to enter company 0001 and filter order type equal to SO in the QBE bar and click Find. My grid is populated. We click on the OneView icon, circled in red, and I select Sales to Date Analysis. Next slide, please. And this is a sample of what you can do with OneView. This is a OneView report that has various regions that are hot linked to the data below. And these type of reports that come standard out of the box should never be modified. They could be copied and you can play with them, but leave the original as is. I can access and run OneView from the data browser. Next slide. Here's a data browser that's open. There's our familiar, now familiar OneView icon. Same story. I have to populate the grid or run a saves query and click on the OneView icon. And here's a typically populated grid of data browser. Next slide, please. Above is a sample OneView report created out of the browser in exactly the same way when you work with the OneView Open Sales Inquiry screen. Now, some new features with 9.1.3 I just wanted to mention. Within the rectangle above is something called watch lists. OneView reports can be added to watch lists and then run directly from there at any time. So that's a nice new feature. OneView reports can now be launched directly by clicking on the E1 page circled in red. You can create pages for OneView reports. And you can launch OneView reports directly by clicking on a task circled in red above.